This week in PlayStation, we're talking about PlayStation's live service games, Housemarque expanding, and Redfall as a warning to PlayStation. We'll have all this and more because this is PS I Love You XOXO. Welcome to the show, everybody. That's Blessing. That's Janet. I'm Greg. And you can get this show on patreon.com/KindaFunny. Over there, you can watch us record it live, get it ad-free, and get dozens and dozens of monthly episodes, all exclusively on patreon.com/KindaFunny. If you have no bucks to toss our way, it's no big deal. Support us on the Epic Game Store, Fortnite, Rocket League, or Fall Guys with the creator code KindaFunny. You can get PS I Love You XOXO for free with ads and without the exclusive content on youtube.com/KindaFunnyGames and podcast services around the globe each and every week. Thank you to our Patreon producer, Delaney Twining. Today we're brought to you by Honey and Rocket Money, but let's start with a PSN message from you. First off, y'all, good to see you again. It's been a while since we're on the show together.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
Right?
What's been happening?
I feel like we've been, busy. It's review season.
I know that. Yeah, that's a good point.
Janet, when you weren't here earlier because you're in LA and we're here, Blessing almost choked on a hamburger for like 20 minutes.
I did. A very riveting episode of KindaFunny.
Was
this recorded?
Oh, sure. You can catch it on
Patreon.
I'm KindaFunny. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, I ate the burger before the episode, and then I just had to deal with the ramifications on the episode because I ate the burger really fast because I was guesting on a different podcast and then going right into KindaFunny, but I needed the fuel to actually live, and so I ate it and I drank some Coke right afterwards because the Coke will wash it down, and it turns out when you drink Coke really fast, it has some effects.
It works against you.
Yeah, no, it's not good for you.
Where do you stand, Bless, on the, I think it was on Games Daily where Greg once said, if something happens and I'm like, I need, medical attention, things are going down and we're live, keep it rolling. Oh, yeah. Just like keep everything going, keep the content going. Where are you at with that? Do you want that kind of trauma broadcast? Are you looking to do a hard cut? What's the situation?
I need to cut the camera as fast as possible.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I don't need my kids seeing that kind of content. I'd be choking on a burger to my death. I'm like, no, cut this off.
You don't have kids right now. How would your kids see it?
I mean, they're going. They're on the internet. The internet is forever. Yeah, I'm just thinking long term, and so
for me, I want it to be like.
If you stay ready, you don't got to get ready.
Back in the days, I'm sure you all remember at ECW, Sinister Minister blew his hand apart when he packed a thing too tight. He always threw fireballs, but he packed it too tight, so it exploded in his hand, blew up his hand. And like when medical professionals came to work on him or whatever, the medical professionals like, turn the fucking camera off, but they were like on the property of them shooting the thing. So there's like his tag team partners like doing like this, and like they're keeping the camera down on their hands and like getting all the stuff. Get all the B-roll on me. If somebody comes and I need CPR, do it right here on the table. You know what I mean?
And like I'll do the tag thing. I'll tag your hand and then continue the podcast.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Why do you have to keep the podcast going? You're allowed to stop and react to what's happening.
No, I gotta play.
Well, I want the camera. Barrett, you keep the cameras rolling. All right. Absolutely. And if you're not okay, then here let's compromise. Just cut the live feed, but keep the cameras running.
That I'm down with. Okay. Yeah, because something good could happen.
Something good could happen.
Yeah, like some juicy content could go down. And I just need the option to overview
die,
it.
And then we resuscitate you.
Yeah.
And like, how good of a video would that be?
Yeah.
Get the Lazarus pit ready.
Then I come right back up and I'm like, I was on the other side.
I don't know if we're allowed to stream that.
I just need to like overview it and be able to give the okay. Like, okay, no, actually, this is good content.
Like give it to Roger to edit,
I just need something not embarrassing to happen.
Some inspirational, video later. You could be like, 1 year ago, I almost walked into the light, and today you should like and subscribe.
I think about
your support on patreon.com/KindaFunny saved my life.
What I think about is there's like a Dave Chappelle bit from like back in the day when he first did like his original stand-up specials where he talked about like the 911 call and how like he wouldn't want his 911 call being recorded because it's just the idea of being like, oh yeah, and we have the recording of Dave Chappelle's audio when he called the cops, and Dave being like, and I sounded like a bitch, and it's him be like, help, and like talking about like, you don't want that on record, you don't want people to hear that. That's my thing is like, I don't want y'all seeing me looking like a bitch like, on camera, right? Like, let me be able to give
you
the
do
okay.
that 3 times a day on camera.
No, but I choose it. I choose to let y'all see that. I give you
That's
the
true. I was
okay.
gonna say, I'm like, was that part of what we entered into? Because I gotta rework how I do things on a lot of pieces of content.
Min Max and I will argue about the rights to your death on camera.
Oh my gosh.
Time for a PSN message to get back to the PlayStation thing. This one comes from Marty. And shockingly, ladies and gentlemen, I think the only man who can answer it is our producer, the boss baby, Barrett Courtney. Marty writes in and says, what are we rating the platinum for Jedi Survivor? Barrett, you, of course, have been you are the only person to have platinumed Star Wars Jedi Survivor. I am working my way to it. However, I had to switch for a different review. I have 32 of 54 trophies. So I can give what I think so far.
Yeah, you're in the middle of it. How are you feeling?
I feel good. I don't feel like this is a crazy ask of me. It was last night though, where I was like, yeah, I told you on the ride home, I'm like, I'm gonna jump in and do a few different things. And what I found wasn't that I couldn't do things quickly. It was that I was like, oh man, it's how good this game is. I started thinking I was just gonna do this, but I'd fast travel back to the ship. But right here, there's a crack in the wall. And I know that I can see that there's a clothing item or whatever. So I was just playing. I just kept exploring and playing last night rather than double down, chase the whole trophy business.
It's a tough one, especially with our review scores, because I'm sitting somewhere between a 3 out of 5 and a 4 out of 5, okay to great.
Okay.
Because I do like that you don't have to 100% the game, 100% the map
Nice.
Sure.
to platinum, because that was a big thing for Fallen Order. Of like, you have to discover 100% of the map on every planet, right, in Fallen Order, and that was really tedious. But I would feel like not as tedious of a trophy, but nearly as tedious of a trophy. I talked to you about the collecting prior right.
Yeah.
So there is a couple of collectibles that you have to get everything for. But outside of that trophy, like I had fun, like you talk about, a good trophy list should have you not fully commit to like a certain activity, but have you try things out that you might not necessarily naturally would have done when it comes to exploring an open world or fun like gameplay mechanics. And obviously, there's like some weird bugged things in my attempt to get the platinum that I was able to find workarounds for, but still. So, yeah, I'm in that like 3 to 4 range.
Okay. Though last night I started doing the holo tactics thing, which is like their Gwent, but not Gwent or whatever. And I, of course, looked at the Power Picks guide, and the Power Picks guide's like, yo, you can cheese it just by using this droid, and then whatever melee. I'm like, awesome. And got to like the third person, and that strategy did not work. And I was like, fuck this. I hate holo tactics.
Holo tactics is a fun thing to do. Playing it for an hour straight to get that trophy sucks.
Yeah, I was like, and of course that's a win all of them. Like, nah, this should have been a try it. Try holo tactics.
Yeah.
You want to try holo tactics? Go for it. Lame. But yeah, I'm enjoying myself. Again, the race, even though we are a PlayStation podcast, to see can I platinum it before Zelda gets here. I do not. Once Zelda gets here, I'll switch over to that and hopefully get back to it one day. But you can look at the trail of other half-dead platinums that Horizon or God of War, all the things I want to get back to eventually before your eyes. We'll see how many of them ever happen.
Well, obviously you might not be able to say, but are you tied up in anything gaming wise
right now
at the moment? Yeah.
No. So after Survivor, I went to Redfall and then did that, and then now have transitioned back to Survivor. So I'm free and clear until Redacted gets here or Zelda release date. So
I think you could probably do it. It depends on how much time you really have to spend
here's
on
my
it, because
thing.
you have like a real life. You
yeah,
know?
exactly. Here's my thing about it is like, I have no doubt I could do it, but I am still very much in love with this game where like, I just want to go do the side missions, and I'm not sure if they're playing into the platinum part of it. And like, I could sit there and read every trophy and figure it all out. I'm going to do the easy stuff. There's still some low hanging fruit of like combat things to do here and there and blah, blah, blah. I was looking at one as I was brushing my teeth last night before bed. I forget which one. It's like, oh, I can do that. That's easy enough to get in and do right now with what I have, but you have to commit to it. But I haven't switched into full trophy hunter mode. I'm still enjoying myself quite a bit.
Yeah, someone was
That's a
asking
mistake.
in the chat, Portland Kevin, rating in terms of quality or difficulty? I didn't really think about difficulty. That was just more of like the fun factor of going through a platinum, because it's not something I do very often. I try to get one a year. So at one point I did look at the trophy list and being like, all right, I want this to be my one platinum this year. And yeah, there was some tedium to it, but I overall like had fun just because the game's fun and getting lost exactly like you're doing now, Greg. Difficulty, it's like you're definitely going to need a guide for a couple of things to get some collectibles and things like that. Just a little bit of help, but nothing where I'm like, oh man, this is going to be so unobtainable. So,
all right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for topic of the show. This one is ripped from the headlines of the KindaFunny XCast. Stick with us. Don't freak out yet. We go. No, I said stick with us. You're wearing an XCast shirt.
You're on the show.
Boo me.
Sean wrote in, just like you can, to be part of the show for free at kindafunny.com/PSILY and says, we have just seen the dismal release of Redfall and the negative reception for Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League. Both are at least partially blamed on traditionally single-player and highly regarded developers being pushed to add games-as-a-service features to their latest games. Sony's audience loves high-quality single-player experiences. Are you concerned Sony's acquisition and press releases seem to be pushing for a stronger focus on games-as-a-service? Are we going to see another failed attempt to jump on the bandwagon? This is an interesting one because not only is it pertinent with the Redfall thing as we watch Xbox continue to struggle, Phil Spencer just being on XCast, having basically a mea culpa, explaining a whole bunch of different things, but also being incredibly upset with where they're at. On top of that, we have this article from George Yang at IGN.com this week. PlayStation's 10 live service games will be from different genres and for different audiences. PlayStation says that its 10 live service games in development will be in different genres and for different audiences. Furthermore, PlayStation is aware of the fierce competition between live service games and the time investment they take. In an interview with GamesIndustry.biz, PlayStation Studios head Herman Hulst said, quote, there is a risk that we talk about live service in generic terms, as if it's a single genre or even a single business model. PlayStation Studios are making a variety of games that could be referred to as live services, targeting different genres, different release schedules, and at different scales, end quote. He continued, quote, we are also creating games for different audiences, and I take confidence from our track record in creating worlds and stories that PlayStation fans love. Of course, bless, one of the big blowbacks to Redfall, of course, is this is Arcane Austin, known for Dishonored, known for Prey, known for a very specific game, now making a co-op multiplayer shooter where you hunt vampires. When you hear the words games as service, live services, PlayStation's more than a dozen games that are using this, are we getting more than a dozen Destinies?
No, and I really enjoy listening to you. I believe it was you and Tim talk about it on Kind of Funny Games Daily, where the way you read it, right, is like the idea of live service elements, and the way that we talk about RPG elements, right? Like these are going to be multiplayer games, right? These are going to be games that are ongoing in some ways, right? But it's not going to be 12 different Destinies because, and to some of what this article talks about, right? Like Herman Hulst saying these take a time investment from players, right? Like there's a lot that goes into it, and we only have so much energy to give as players between these different types of games. I think that's part of what works with PlayStation's single player strategy is that like when I think of a PlayStation Studios game, there's an identity that they have where I'm going to play God of War, I'm going to play Last of Us, I'm going to play Ghost of Tsushima, I'm going to play Horizon. Like I'm going to bounce between all these different games because
you're going to roll credits and be done as well.
I'm going to be roll credits and be done and be able to have the bandwidth to go to the next one. We've talked about recently games like was it Rumbleverse? Yeah, Rumbleverse, and
Knockout
games
City.
like or Knockout City. Yeah, and like the growing list, Avengers, the growing list of live service games that end up shutting down and not being able to support. Multiverse, for example, which was super successful.
That was the plan all along.
Sorry, that was an early. My bad. That was an early access. That was in beta. That wasn't a final release. But that Multiverses was super popular at launch, right? Like I saw that everywhere. The player numbers were up, all that stuff at launch. And then months later, we check in and we're like, when was the last time you talked about Multiverses? And then sure enough, you check in and they're taking half a year off to then release in 1.0 apparently. But I bet to fix things and figure out how to get that popularity back up. It is really tough for games as a service games, especially right now where I think one, like we're not post-pandemic, but like we're far enough into the pandemic where we've seen that boom go up, and now we've seen things even out in terms of new players coming in and being able to have all this time to spend in video games. I think that's one. Two, like we don't have as much money to spend on video games as we have had in the past because of the state of the economic world.
Sure.
And then also there are just more and more games as service games taking our attention, and there can only be so many Fortnites. There can only be one Fortnite. Like if we're being real, right?
Yeah,
there can only be so many Destinies. There can only be so many of those big, gigantic games that we're coming in and we're playing all throughout the year. Like I check it even with a game like Fall Guys, and I feel like Fall Guys comes in waves where it's a big new update.
Season,
we play for a week or a few weeks, and then we're pretty quiet on it. And I'm sure Fall Guys does fine, like in the quote off season, right? But again, that's a game like that's Fall Guys. That's a pretty big title in terms of recognition and being owned by Epic and all these things. When you're talking about PlayStation coming in and doing 10 to 12 live service games, I don't think even on the platform you have space for 12 Destinies. I think you gotta. I think to the idea of different genres and different audiences, you gotta have a lot of variety in terms of how you approach that idea. And I think that idea can be something as simple as MLB The Show and what we see updates look like for that game, or something like Gran Turismo and what we see updates look like for that game, or something like literally like Destiny, which they have now and they can continue to update and everything in between. I don't think we're gonna get a bunch of big 10-year plan type games.
Janet, what about you? Is Blessing on track?
Yeah, I mean, I would say so. I think it also goes back to, I don't remember if I even said it on this show or just somewhere else. Maybe it was in the last episode we did, I don't remember. But I always talk about like the 10 Jordan comparisons where people ask like, why can't we just have a team? And I forget how many people play basketball, so don't at me about who's on the court or not. But it's like, why can't we have a team of like all the best? And it's theoretically that would be really cool, but even when you think of that theoretical aspect, different people bring different things to the team. And if you think of PlayStation, the brand and the studios underneath it as being part of that team, you have to have some level of well-roundedness to it. So it is reassuring. Is a little dramatic because I'm personally just not the biggest fan of live service games, like as a player. From a business perspective, I think this makes sense. And again, there's a lot of different people playing. You know, even between the three of us, we have different tastes and proclivities in what we look for in gaming. So I do think approaching that live service as an existing gap in what PlayStation has to offer is smart. But that being said, it's like, okay, well, can you hit it when hitting it is so hard? I think it's going to be really tough. I feel like, honestly, if you get even, I feel like 3 games that have some level of, not virality, but like a lot longer discussion, I would say. Like things like, you know, Bless's mention of like Knockout City and Fall Guys, like where there's a real traction there and a real feeling of a level of differentiation. I think that's kind of the problem with a lot of the games that come to mind, and kind of what Herman Hulse is talking about in this interview is when you do think of live service, you do kind of think of one thing. You know, I do think of, frankly, something like Arcadegeddon, even though Arcadegeddon had different stuff going on in it. But I think of that energy of, I don't know, I'm shooting something, I'm doing something, I'm, you know, there's microtransactions, some cosmetics. It takes a long time for me to load into it, like, and I get a little turned off by it. But I think if you reconceptualize what a live service could be and what incorporating those elements into just a quality game look like. You know, the other day I was on recording the Min-Max show, and Ben was talking about the aspect of having like, of Deathloop being like an online multiplayer game. I'm like, oh, I don't think of it as that, but it like totally is that. I would love to see not just putting the cart before the horse in terms of these live service games. Obviously there's a demand in wanting to fill that market, but that demand needs to be able to gel well with creative vision. And I guess my only concern is, what does that creative vision look like? And is it distinct enough to really pop? Because at the end of the day, that's what's going to matter. That's what's going to carry it through. You can twist and tweak how you roll stuff out, how you grind, the progression, what cosmetics you introduce, what events, all of that. But you need to have that creative base. And right now, we can just speculate on what that could be. And it could be really awesome, or it could be a bit flat and generic. I don't really know what direction they're going to take it in, or if they're really leaning into truly the passions of those teams and not just checking a box like, hey, we have to get this done. Let's figure out what can we make work instead of what am I excited to get working.
So yeah, Blessing brought up the conversation I had on Games Daily about this, and my thought there was the idea that, you know, in 2007 and 2008, when I started at IGN and we were coming back from previews, it seemed like there was this thing where people would come back and be like, oh my God, this game was super cool. It's got RPG elements. It's RPG light. There's a skill tree. There's XP. That was different. That was something we usually only saw in role-playing games, but was suddenly making its way into action games. And of course now it's, you know, the line isn't even blurred. It's shoved together. The Venn diagram is a circle. It seems like everything has you leveling in some degree and doing things there. My thoughts are that that's what we're going to see the majority of with this initiative, where it's not going to be you get 10 to 12 Destinies. It's going to be that you get a bunch of different games, and some of them will be, it's free to play, and there's a battle pass, and there's this, and there's that. But I think the majority would be cherry picking things like that and putting them into games they're putting out. And the example I used, right, was it's the new Astrobot, and it is a single player platformer you're running through and doing it, but they're really running with that idea they had in the last Astrobot, which was those challenges and the leaderboards. When you turned on your PlayStation, it would pop up in the corner and say, oh, Jeff Grubb just beat your time, blah, blah, blah. And you'd see cool things like that. I could see them, they drop a level a week, a month, whatever. Not even brand new level, maybe just tweaked and whatever. There is a, daily login reward of it, that it gives you whatever currency they're using. And then at the end of the week, gives you a new Astrobot skin, right? If you hit all 5 of those days. Very similar to what I see with WWE 2K series, right? With my faction, where I log into 2K23 just about every day to make sure I'm getting my daily rewards. But it's usually pop in, daily rewards, pop out, and go play what I was going to go play. I'm not actually doing anything in it. I think those are more likely to be the hooks you see PlayStation weaving into whatever they're doing. So that's how you tackle that. However, then it is the conversation on this other side with Redfall and the conversation with Phil and the XCast, and then looking at Herman having this conversation here and what it means for Sony first parties. Like, you always want to believe, I always want to believe everything I've ever heard from PlayStation developers is true, which is that, first party, when it was Shu leading Worldwide Studios, now when it's Herman, it isn't them coming in and saying, you're making this. It's the studios coming to them and saying, hey, we have this idea for a game. We think it's the right move for us. Here's what it is. And they pitch, and it could get greenlit. It might not get greenlit. And that would then lead to this conversation of, okay, cool. They're not forcing them to make games as service models, right? They're not saying, all right, it needs to be this, it needs to be that. But then it does get interesting to see how they would take these mechanics and put them in. Like, you know what I mean? Bless, are you afraid of games as a service initiatives infiltrating your single player games?
Of them infiltrating my single player games, I don't like the idea, but I also don't think that's what's going to happen, right? Like, I think we're seeing just a lot of growth. One of the stories here that I'll just throw into this segment we have for this week in PlayStation is about Housemarque and how Housemarque is expanding, right? And like, I'll read it directly from Kill Adam at Push Square. Housemarque, the Finnish developer behind games like Returnal and Resogun, is PlayStation Studios' resident arcade expert. Since joining the first party family, it seems the company has grown to 110 people, with that number likely to increase as it gears up for whatever comes next, though they aren't in the habit of making sequels. We know that Housemarque had around 80 employees when it was acquired and will surely continue to ramp up as time goes on, right? And like, you go over to, I believe it was one of their folks' like LinkedIn page or something like that had like, oh yeah, we have 110 people now, and like, we only keep on expanding. I think it's the idea of, we're hiring in more people so that we can expand on these franchises, right? And make more of what you want. We love Horizon Forbidden West. What if...
we do, Barrett.
Yeah, Barrett. What if, along with Horizon 3, we also got a Horizon multiplayer Monster Hunter-like co-op game?
More
that sounds like
Horizon
finally
Forbidden West.
but like, that sounds incredible, doesn't it? Like, that sounds absolutely awesome. I loved Ghost of Tsushima Legends, right? A handful of us absolutely adored Ghost of Tsushima Legends, right? The people that played it. What if...
Factions.
Yeah, like, well, so many of us love Last of Us Factions. What if, along with the next single-player Ghost of Tsushima game, we also got a different Ghost of Tsushima Legends 2 type experience? What if, we just got Last of Us Part 2? Now, let's have a full-fledged, expanded-out Last of Us Factions and give those titles all of the love, care that they deserve, as opposed to just being these modes attached to these single player games where people are going to forget about them. I think that is the thing that makes this exciting and interesting. And I think all those things are going to want to treat in different ways. I hope that for Last of Us, they're able to maybe even get close to a Destiny-like experience where it is over time, they're adding in more missions, you're doing co-op, but there's also a PvP mode. Like, I want Last of Us Factions to be that. I don't need Ghost of Tsushima Legends to be that.
What I'd like to see, and Sean brings it up, right, in his question, Sony's audience loves high-quality single-player experiences, period, is what he puts there, right? Like, for me, Factions is so fascinating, not just because it's a follow-up to Last of Us Factions with people love, not only because it's Naughty Dog, who's incredible at what they do. It's the idea that what we've heard from it when Neil talks about it is, hey, this is going to be a Naughty Dog game, but also have this multiplayer thing. What does that look like? Is it? I really wonder if it's going to be, you talk about a PvP mode or a PvE mode or whatever. Mm-hmm. Is it going to be this, like, seamless kind of thing where it's like, I'm not even promoting a game I was in or that I just truly love, right? But like Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed, like there's stories stitching together, you going out, but you're just going out and playing a multiplayer game where you hunt a ghost and you come back and you get a cutscene, whatever, right? Like I really wonder if Last of Us Factions 2, or whatever you want to call this multiplayer project from Naughty Dog, right, is going to be we create a character and then there is a story that we're getting that character dropped into, but then there also is you go through the door into the home base that is the meeting point with everybody else to go off and play the you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And because what I want it to be is seamless.
That's the part that I don't know if they're going to be able to get down because the kind of game they're making. Because I think it's going to be, if I had to guess, I would guess it'll be like either an Outriders or a Division type game, but with like the Last of Us Part 2 type combat and presentation, which sounds fantastic. I think you're going to have different classes of characters based on the factions. I think it is, I want to play, I'll just throw out stuff that exists, right? I want to play as a WLF member, or I want to play as one of the Scars, which I think might be a derogatory term for that for that crew. But you get what I'm talking about. I want to play as like one of the the Fireflies. I want to pick from one of these different factions, and those come with different abilities that you're able to take into like this PvE stuff, and you're going through and like as you're completing the missions will have cutscenes similar to like how you play Outriders, but I think you're gonna be getting like the disjointedness of what a multiplayer story is. I think if anybody can figure it out though, it could be Naughty Dog, but I just don't know if it's possible. Like I don't know if that's the thing that if we're going to be able to iron out in a multiplayer game like that where everybody's in a different place in the story, and also there's this way more going on when you have multiple people in there, and like there has to be. But
if anybody could do it, right? Like that's the thing. We always talk about big steps and big swings and yada yada yada. Like I feel like that's what we need, because again, like the Division is what I was pitching, right? Where it is. You're your own agent and you're running around to do the thing, but if you want to, you can have other people join you and run through it. And if you really want to, you go in the dark zone, it becomes PvP, or some of the other modes now they've added and stuff like that. But even that feels not stilted, but it feels traditional and segmented. And I'm interested to see how people can merge it.
I think after Redfall, I get a little bit scared of Vision.
Is that from something?
What I just said there?
That was the theme song that plays when you begin the game.
Yeah, you don't remember that?
When you boot up? Yeah.
Which
every time.
I don't remember it.
Yeah, one of the vampires is singing. But like I get scared of a Vision that ends up you getting to the finish line and being like, oh fuck, this didn't work. Because we in the XCast interview, right? They talked to Phil. They talked about the idea of delaying the game, right? And it came down to a conversation of creative vision, right? It's not just that the game didn't run well. It's not just that it had the 30 FPS stuff. It's that like they had a goal for what their vision of this thing was, right? And like at the end of the day, it just didn't come together in a way that reflected well in the audience when people actually got their hands on it. Naughty Dog, they're one of the GOATs in terms of like the single player third person action game. Like they got that shit down. I get scared, especially coming off of Redfall, because going to Redfall, that's Arcane. Like I put them in the GOAT conversation in terms of single player action stealth and like level design and putting together a really well constructed video game. I put them in that conversation too, and they just fucked up a multiplayer game that they try to put out. I'm at the point now where like no big video game studio is beyond fucking up.
Of course not.
Like we've seen so many of these.
Yeah.
Naughty Dog could easily become one of these, right? If they put out the Last of Us multiplayer game and it ends up like a Redfall, God forbid. Like that would break my heart so much.
Yeah.
But that could happen, especially if it is, hey, we're Naughty Dog and we don't only want to put out a great multiplayer game. We want to put out something that pushes the boundaries, and we do want to loop in a Naughty Dog narrative and like go really ambitious with it. And then you get to the finish line and you're like, fuck, we bit off way more than we could chew here. Sure. Like what we're trying to do.
They keep pushing the finish line. Well, I guess maybe not even pushing it.
Yeah.
The finish line is just definitely out there. Janet, I saw you nodding your head. What did you want to say?
Yeah, well, two things. One, I lightly laughed because I pictured Joel as a vampire. Two, I definitely agree with that. Anyone can fail at any time. It's something I mentioned, and maybe it's because again, it's weird to say that I'm younger because I am, but it's like I'm also almost 30, so it's like I'm not that young. But I say that all the time, whereas like people will be like, oh, you don't understand. You weren't there in 2008. You didn't feel how I felt. I'm like, okay, look, well, we're not there anymore, and maybe they're not there either. And I think, part of being open to failure is also being open to taking chances and trying things, and sometimes not everything's going to work out. I think the potential benefit of, depending on how they angle the games as a service elements, live service angle, talking about something like Last of Us Factions, even though it's not necessarily going to be called that, it has a lot of good things going for it in that there is a base that I can see and I can believe in what I see, you know? Like, by that I mean, I think the gameplay in Last of Us 2 is absolutely fantastic. It feels great. There is definitely kind of a light worry on, can you translate it though when it's, you know, not when you have less control, right? Because you have the element of having other players, are set pieces and things going to be exciting? Are you going to be able to like cater to these different play styles? How are you going to like set it up? Are you going to have those narrative elements? There are a lot of questions, but I believe in the base of what it is. Personally, for Redfall, like I never believed in it. Like it just felt very generic looking to me. And that's what I worry about with these live service games that are coming down the pipeline. Will I look at it and be like, you could be anything? Yep. You know, even something like Outriders, which a game that I think is pretty solid. And granted, it hit us at like a very good time where it's like, what are we playing? There's nothing out, so we're definitely gonna at least play Outriders. But to Outriders' credit, like I do that a lot of weeks. You know, I tried out Redfall. I'm gonna keep playing it on Friday because that's what's out this week. So like Outriders did get that moment, and it lived up to it to the degree that the game has a decent base quality of being enjoyable. But even that game, what does it kind of get knocked for? It's kind of just something that you're doing. It's sort of generic. We've kind of, I don't know, you're in space, someone's talking to you, who cares? Like, you end up feeling a lot of that, and it's because I feel like I've seen Outriders 8 billion times before. You know, there's a game coming down the pipeline that just got, I think it was like a preview was released for it. What was it called? It's called the Immortals of...
of Avium.
Oh,
yeah. And maybe that game will be fire and people will clip this out and be like, oh, it actually was the people who knew. I don't know, whatever. But just from the pitch doesn't sound interesting to me. You know, I think it was like, they dropped an extra trailer or something for it. That maybe it'll be really good and I'll eat my words on it. But stuff like that, like it ends up just feeling so generic and random lore stuff smattered together on like different ideas. You know, it's not something that feels fresh. And obviously at this point in media in general, there's that saying no idea is original, but I feel like some ideas are distinctly unoriginal feeling. Yeah. And that's definitely a concern I have when we think about and start to conceptualize what could these live service games look like or elements look like. I'm curious to see if they are venturing into potential new IP. Like, I think that'd be awesome. I'm always down for new stuff, but I wonder what that could look like and how it's going to be fresh. You know, I do have a lot of optimism from the teams and what they might deliver, but yeah, to Blessing's point and to the thing we can all agree on, a pedigree and a history doesn't necessarily mean that your next thing is going to be fire, but you know, I'll have stronger feelings, I think, as I start to hear what is your pitch and is it something that I can genuinely feel excited about, or am I kind of crossing my fingers going into it because I'm not buying in yet?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing is we already have like a lot of these answers. Like a lot of these studios have talked about what they're working on and their vision for a lot of these games. And one of the things I want to call out is You'll Call Me Rob in chat, who says, "Let single player studios do what they do well." Right? And with that, like I go back to the Phil Spencer interview that XCast did, where you know Phil talks about like not boxing in studios into doing just one thing, right? Because you think that is the thing that they do well. I don't think that Naughty Dog is working on Last of Us multiplayer game because PlayStation was like, you have to make a Last of Us multiplayer game. In fact, I don't know why PlayStation would even say something like that. I think Naughty Dog is making that game because they know that that's what their audience wants, and they have a vision that they want to nail. When that preview for Last of Us Part 2, I believe it was September 2019, it was like during my Up and Comers week for KindaFunny. When that preview came out, right, a lot of people had the question of what's up with multiplayer, because I think somebody got confirmation of, oh, Last of Us Part 2 isn't going to have multiplayer. And it was around that time where Naughty Dog put out a statement being like, hey, we are working on a Last of Us multiplayer thing. We've not forgotten about multiplayer. We want to do this. But for now, we're focusing in on single player for Last of Us Part 2. They want to do it, right? And I think a lot of these studios probably want to do this as well. You look at Ghost of Tsushima Legends. Yeah, like if I'm that studio, if I'm Sucker Punch, I want to follow up on that because we did such a great job with this. More people deserve to know about this and want to get into this. And I think an expanded version of that is such a good idea. I go back to Housemarque again. I'm going into speculation here with Housemarque, but I love the idea of them expanding, whether or not that's just for their next single player thing that they're doing, or if they're even considering the idea of doing a multiplayer thing, because Returnal got the co-op update. And co-op in Returnal is so fun. Like I did that during a stream with Andy like a couple months ago, and I had such a good time. And I love the idea of Housemarque coming out and being like, "Yo, we're gonna put out for our next thing, an arcade style shooter that does have a focus on multiplayer, that does take a lot of what we learned about putting co-op into Returnal and making this like a big AAA type of thing." I do think that studios do like are allowed to have the passion and are allowed to be like, yo, we want to do something that's multiplayer after doing something that's single player. And also I think it's exciting. I think I want more innovation on the multiplayer side. I want more multiplayer stuff from PlayStation first party, because that is a gap that is starting to grow there, especially with Xbox possibly acquiring Activision Blizzard. I do want them to fill in the gaps of having in a first person shooter that is a banger, right? Like I want Deviation or whoever you have over there that you're partnered with, Firewalk, put out something that's fire. And yeah, on that point, again,
It's in the name.
We do have a Firewalk, right? It's not Firewalk.
Yeah.
On that point, yeah, we do have answers. London Studios working on a fantasy co-op game that looks interesting. They only put up the concept art for it, right? And announced that they're making a fantasy game.
Yeah, it's
that
like the Magic in London.
in London one, yeah. And the concept art is like a dragon that's over the bridge with people on the ground. And
I'm nervous about that. I'm going just on that. Like and that's still, I mean, it's something, and I get what you're saying. Like we have bits, but we don't have like enough for me to be swayed one way or the other yet. Like it's like we got like a postcard of information. Like I get more information from like a tweet than I do from some of these, and it's fine because there might not be far enough along to warrant that discussion. But it's like, okay, I still can't quite conceptualize what this looks like in practice. And then I think it's too, especially what that live service support looks like and how it is kind of what you expect from it, or maybe how it's a little bit different. Omega Buster in the chat mentions that live service goes like way beyond just multiplayer. It's like the general commitment. And they also mentioned like, oh, do you want, with the Naughty Dog comparison, them working on that for years and years instead of their next game? Oh yeah, sure, if it's a good game.
100%.
Like you know what I mean? Like I get the desire like from Omega Buster and other people of wanting more stuff from like the studios you love, right? But not every studio is going to be cranking out stuff at the rate of like freaking Insomniac, which is like flying through space and time somehow. Like things take time, and if they're working, like let them do the work and live in it. If you have a good, like, I don't want to trade, like, it's like a weird like a hypothetical math. It's like, well, would you rather have 2 good single player games or 1 good live service game? It's like, it's hard enough to get 1 good game, period. Like, get your wins where you can get them, follow the passion, see where like it is. You can always expand and figure out ways to support and kind of have your cake and eat it too. I don't necessarily have a fear of studios getting so tied up. I think it would take so long for studios to get so tied up in live service that the overall narrative of what PlayStation is shifts completely, like away from single player story-based stuff, which to its credit, yeah, the fans love it, but also it is kind of the identity, and there are other, even though I love those games
you can make.
Exactly. Like it's the identity and people like it, but it's also very memed, and it's memed because it's very like expected, right? It's like, oh, what do I get from PlayStation? I get this. You want to be able to always give a little bit more beyond that. And frankly, like even being, I don't know, in PlayStation's corner or trying to talk about how the ways they do have differentiation, there isn't a lot in that way. Like I do think they could benefit from being a little bit more well-rounded, and this is a step in that direction.
And I also think the single player identity that PlayStation has works so well because they are filling in a gap. The third parties aren't really putting out that many prestige single player third person action games at the rate that and quality that PlayStation is, right? And that's
Forspoken.
Oh, sorry, I always forget about Forspoken. Goddamn. But that's because those games are very expensive and time consuming to make. And PlayStation, they're able to do that because they know it's going to sell consoles. They know that having these games exclusive is going to create a need for players to want to show up and get that console, because they view PlayStation as the place, like the premier place, and possibly like at this point the only place where you can play games like Horizon, God of War, Spider-Man. The list goes on. I go back to the Call of Duty thing, right? Losing Call of Duty, seeing like a space that is I guess a gaming ecosystem that is losing out on a lot of the prestige first-person shooters, competitive PvP stuff. At least on the PlayStation side, with losing Activision, I could see PlayStation putting out an exclusive PvP shooter, and if it's a banger, I think that does really well for them, because again, they are filling in these gaps that they are starting to lose out on as studios are getting acquired and bought up. I think it works in that way where, one, you get to expand your identity a little bit, but then also, yeah, you're selling a game because you're showing them something that's on your platform that like they're able to get, even if they're missing out on a Call of Duty.
Not to mention, yeah, you're selling the platform, right? Another, I thought, interesting telling thing from the XCast interview, right, was Phil Spencer being very upfront that, they're third place in hardware and they're not trying to out console Sony and yada, yada, yada. He said, like, we're running different races. PlayStation's race is to get you to buy and play on the PlayStation 5 all the time. So yeah, to Janet's point, like you put all the PlayStation first party stuff that's bangers out in a line and it looks similar right at a glance. Why not fill those gaps with a shooter like you're talking about? Have an answer, right? Like again, third parties, Call of Duty, Destiny, or not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It used to formerly a third party, now but a game everywhere. Is what is leading the shooter charge, not Halo, right? Like Halo did not deliver the way people wanted to. So if PlayStation can move in and have that to be the reason you're turning on your PlayStation, if one of these games that call me a traditionalist for PlayStation, but if one of these goddamn live service games better fucking be a fat princess. And it better be a fun way to do it. And
it's not gonna be.
New little fat princesses and be free to play, be 99 cents. It's not trying to be a $70. This is the thing. It is a game that you turn on every day and you play a round of or whatever to do whatever the hell it is, and then you move on to your next thing. You go onto the big game and go do it, but you're still on your PlayStation, right? Like I think that's so much of this. And again, PlayStation makes all these single player games that we talk about that you play and you roll credits and maybe you platinum it, but you eventually are done and you move on. They just want one of these things to be something you come back to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And to go back to the idea of like, we know a lot of what they're working on. I kept trying to search on Twitter for like the tweet I put up forever ago that had all the
Omega Buster says like Sackboy with the outfits. Yes, 100%. A new Sackboy, or maybe expand on Big Adventure and make it into a full-fledged game rather than just a great idea with a good soundtrack. And then you have something there, or the Sackboy Battle Pass that you're getting all these different
live
things.
service Sackboy, a Sackboy that Janet will never be able to beat.
Sack Boys.
Finally. That was almost just the regular Sackboy game, honestly, at a certain point. Anything's a live service game if you take long enough to play it and keep buying things. But yeah, what's up, Les? Did you find your the mega list of...
I made like my like theory list of games that they could be working on, right? And like I like wrote down if they're confirmed or if it's bed and all this stuff, right?
Sure.
And even since then, it's been updated. But I think we have a pretty clear idea of like what their vision is for live service when you go through. Because Bungie has talked about working on a new IP, right? Like you expect something new from Bungie. Naughty Dog is working on Last of Us Factions. Firewalk is working on a new AAA multiplayer IP. I think they talked about it being a shooter. London Studio, even since I posted this thing, right? They've talked about the London fantasy co-op multiplayer game that they're working on. The report is that Fire Sprite could be working on Twisted Metal, and we expect a Twisted Metal, and so that
gotta be ready for that hit Peacock show.
Exactly. I mean, that show's going to take over the world, so you want to be able to align with that, which I think the report also is that like they're not going to be able to align with that, but we'll see.
Classic.
Deviation, like 2 Summer Game Fests ago, came out and said they're working on a multiplayer FPS, a new IP for PlayStation. And then for my bets, right? Sucker Punch, because they're hiring for multiplayer, got to be working on Ghost of Tsushima Legends 2. Guerrilla, they announced that they're working on a multiplayer Horizon game. And then, yeah, like Insomniac is hiring for multiplayer. Who knows what that is? But right there, you already got a large handful of what probably makes up the projects they're working on.
And then MLB The Show every year as well.
MLB The Show, Gran Turismo 7. Do you count Firewall Ultra? Is that a game? Is that like a live service game?
No,
I mean, does
wouldn't.
it have like a pack or?
They
like,
do DLC, but that's more traditional. That's not a live service.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Unless and there's a lot of stuff in that demo they were like, we're not ready to talk about yet, so maybe there will be a battle pass of some kind or something, but no.
But yeah, I feel like we've got like not a clear picture, but we can read the tea leaves in terms of what their live service things are going to be. And from like that list right there, I think it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, let's double down on the IPs, and
Fat Princess.
And also add in a Fat Princess there, and we've nailed it.
The IPs we know, Greg. The IPs we know. I do think from that list, like there doesn't sound to be as much differentiation in genre as I would be hoping for. I don't know. Maybe I'm being a little harsh, or just I don't like FPS games or whatever. But
I also forgot to mention Haven Studio, which is in there too.
That's the thing. Yes, I feel like that's going to be the weirdo art thing.
Yeah, that'll be the new that game company. That'll be the new the Flower.
Yeah.
Journey. That's what I was looking for, actually. We'll wait and see, everybody. It's coming.
I'm excited for it. When do we get the reveal of some of these games?
See, and that's what's going to be interesting about it, where I just don't think it's going to be hey, here's the first of our 10 live service games. Like, I think it's going to be a thing, and then it'll be like, oh, well, that's kind of a live servicey element inside it, with the exception that I do think the first is going to be Last of Us, whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
And so
I
then
think it'll be one of those things too, where it's like in like months later in an interview when they're talking about live service, they'll mention a game and they're like, I guess they count that as one of their live service games. Like I feel like it'll have a little bit of that amorphous nature to it. But you know, there's definitely, I understand the hesitancy and concern, and I don't know like how many of these games are going to be bangers. Whether or not I end up playing them is irrelevant, but just in terms of what will the critical acclaim be, because there's a lot of games that are critically acclaimed that I just choose not to, you know, spend my time with, but I can acknowledge that they have an important function in the ecosystems they exist in. I do think though, to, you know, go back to the XCast episode, which definitely check it out if you haven't. I'm like halfway through it. I feel like one of the takeaways is, you know, not to operate from a place of fear and to be open to taking risks, even if that does mean, you know, an occasional loss. And, you know, I definitely agree with that. Like, you can't look at PlayStation being a place for single player games and take that as, okay, well, let's just keep rocking with what we're doing because it works, and we're afraid that one day it won't work, because that's a good way to look up and be behind because you were too unwilling to, you know, change and evolve and adapt. You want to stay ahead, and that is going to involve taking some risks. I feel like we see, you know, some aspects of risk and creativity from PlayStation. Again, whether or not it's successful, they clearly did like a second on their VR, a second on the handhelds. The 2s don't work out that well, except for the PS2. PS2 is fine. But, you know, there's... yeah, the PS2 is fine.
Whatever. I guess it did all right.
PS2
don't let
lives.
people think I don't like the PS2. I fuck with the PS2.
It's the greatest platform of all time. I play it for me. I love the PS2.
Yeah, I don't know.
You know,
Anyway.
PSP.
You're right.
But the point is, there's stuff there, right? And I think in terms of, you know, we've seen aspects of that with hardware and to a degree software, but I feel like this is the next step in that. And yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to see what they have and if any of it will end up speaking to me or the larger audience.
I think we'll get a couple at the rumored report.
That's my thing. If they do the PlayStation showcase or whatever, you have to imagine that's where Last of Us is. That's where they actually show gameplay of that or whatever it's going to be.
I hope we see. My prediction is what my fake showcase was a few weeks ago when we did that. Where like I think for sure we get Last of Us, and I think we get a couple more. Like I would love to see whatever like the Bungie. The rumor from like Insider Gaming was Marathon. I still don't know / understand what Marathon is, but like. If they're working on another marathon, sure, like I'll check that out, or whatever other Bungie thing they're doing, and then like I'll think either a Firewalk or a Deviation or like one of those studios shows up finally with one of their things.
Finally,
maybe Haven. I need one of them to like show up. And
I'm ready to see
show me
Haven
one of their
stuff.
things.
Let's hear more about Haven.
Yeah, why'd you acquire them? I want to know.
Exactly.
What did you see?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, what do you see in us? You watch this far in the show, want to go the extra mile and go to patreon.com/kindafunny. Over on patreon.com/kindafunny, you can get each and every episode of PS I Love You XOXO ad-free. You could then also, of course, watch this recorded live. You could get dozens of exclusive episodes, all only on patreon.com/kindafunny. But most importantly, you can get it ad-free. But since you're not on Patreon, here's a word from our sponsor.
Shout out to Honey for sponsoring this episode. Honey is the easy way to save when shopping on your iPhone or computer. Thanks to Honey, manually searching for coupon codes is a thing of the past, and we all know there's nothing better than the feeling of saving money. Honey's the free shopping tool that scours the internet for promo codes and applies the best one it finds to your cart. Here's how it works. Imagine you're shopping on one of your favorite sites. When you check out, the Honey button appears, and all you have to do is click Apply Coupons. You wait a few seconds as the Honey guy dances. It searches for coupons it can find for the site, and if it finds a working coupon, you will watch the prices drop. We here at Kinda Funny have been using Honey for years, and it has literally saved us thousands on tech, costumes, food, you name it. Honestly, I just love how easy it is to set, forget, and save. Honey doesn't just work on desktops, it also works on your iPhone. You just activate it on Safari on your phone, save on the go. And if you don't already have Honey, you could be straight up missing out. By getting it, you'll be doing yourself a solid and supporting this show. You can get PayPal Honey for free at joinhoney.com/kindafunny. That's joinhoney.com/kindafunny. Shout out to Rocket Money for sponsoring this episode. We all love gobbling up content, and we have an understanding of what subscriptions we use. Or do we? Do you know how much your subscriptions really cost? Most Americans think they spend around $80 a month on subscriptions when the actual total is closer to $200. That's right. You You out there, you could be wasting hundreds of dollars each month on subscriptions you don't even know about. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions. It monitors your spending and it helps you lower your bills, all in one place. Rocket Money has saved some of us here at KindaFunny a ton of money, and it can help you too. Stop throwing away your money. Cancel unwanted subscriptions and manage your expenses the easy way by going to rocketmoney.com/kindafunny. That's rocketmoney.com/kindafunny, rocketmoney.com/kindafunny.
Blessing, what's happening this week in PlayStation?
Spider-Man 2 is getting a prequel comic. This
What?
was reported on the PlayStation blog. Saturday, May 6th is Free Comic Book Day. And to celebrate, we teamed up with Marvel to release a comic that will serve as a prequel to the upcoming game of Marvel Spider-Man 2. Later this month, Marvel Spider-Man Remastered.
Well, don't move on too fast, all right? You edited this down, but you have to point out that this comic book is going to answer the question, is magic real? All right?
Is magic real, do you think?
No.
No?
I don't think Insomniac's universe magic is real.
It's got to be, though, right? Like, Doctor Strange, his place is in there. The Sanctum
Sanctorum.
Sanctum Sanctorum, yeah.
Big deal.
If that's there, then
magic.
magic has to be real.
No, it's just a fucking building, everybody. All right? We don't know
what do you think
happening
is
in that
happening
building.
inside that building? It's
Could just
magic.
be studying.
Nah,
It's fair.
man.
It's fair.
He's doing this thing. Doctor Strange.
He is doing that
He's doing
thing.
this thing,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
like
Nailed it.
sparks are coming out. And it's magic. I promise you. It's magic.
I think so.
Janice with me. And then later this month, Marvel Spider-Man Remastered will become available for a standalone purchase on the PlayStation Store. This title was previously only included as part of Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales Ultimate Edition. And if you remember, there was a whole hubbub back then where we were all
Dust
like,
up.
why aren't you releasing this alone? Why aren't you releasing this standalone? Janet, is it too late for Spider-Man Remastered to release standalone?
No, it's never too late because there's always people that haven't played games. And we know that because 30 years from now, we could tell you the ending of Miles Morales and someone would be like, I am playing it right now and you ruined my whole afternoon. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I had no way of knowing. But all jokes aside about that, I mean, there is truth to that, right? And I think that is why we do things like couch stuff that's fairly old a lot of times because you never know when people are getting into it. You know, there's a lot of the community that's either barely getting their hands on a PS5 or still haven't gotten their hands on a PS5. Like, I've talked to people directly who are like, I feel like there's still not enough for me to warrant that purchase. And especially if you go back to and they came into the gen late. Well, I think too, if you always come into the gen late, you feel like, whoa, I just got the PS4, because that's how I used to feel when I like would get stuff later. I'm like, well, I got to get more of this PS4 juice before I start drinking out of the PS5. And then you're just hoping that like the upgrades don't come. So, you know, I think everyone takes it on a different timeline. Better late than never. I will say this does, on a negative standpoint, remind me of that original weirdness, because I forgot about that. Like as you were reading it, I'm like, oh, that's such an odd decision. So, you know, I'm glad that it's available. You know, more stuff available in more ways is always good. And it's a great game. And I feel like it makes sense to lean more into Spider-Man in the lead up of Spider-Man 2. You know, give people more access, more things to get excited about, more ways to play.
Greg, does the Hood appear in the Spider-Man 2 video game? Because of course the Hood is the the villain.
Hood's not going to be in the
That is
video
gonna
game.
prove that
This will be
magic is
wrapped
real.
up in the comic. You don't have to worry about this whatsoever.
I feel like for the magic is real thing, like I would have been more interesting to have Mysterio be the thing.
100%.
'Cause you would've read that
Mysterio, you
deal.
probably want to save for the real game.
you were getting Mysterio in the
You
game?
want to hold on to Mysterio and
Who's
keep it in
the
your back
annoying
pocket.
influencer in the Spider-Man DLC?
Hold on, I'm confused.
Oh, yeah.
Screwball.
Screwball. You don't think like the Hood is going to be like the Screwball equivalent for this game? Popping
No.
up, being
No.
like, "Ooh, is magic real?"
No, I don't think so. I think Hood's going to be wrapped up in 22 pages on Free Comic
Someone
Book
have
Day. and no
Barrett
one's gonna
voice
care
act
again.
in their game. 'cause
Pizza
that
bet.
was
Barrett's a
good.
great voice actor.
Pizza
Yeah,
bet.
thank you. Pizza bet right now.
Yeah.
I think the Hood will be in Spider-Man 2.
And so when you say that, you mean as the Screwball, you just mean in the game, period.
In the game, period.
As somebody, like, is it going to be a reference, like a
At
fucking piece of
least
paper?
like a side quest. Not like you pick up a piece of paper and it's like, oh, the Hood. Like, it'll be like a side quest at least.
Do you think Whoa. Do you think the Hood is voice acted?
Yes.
Okay. For funds, I'll take it, yeah.
All right.
No Hood in the game.
And when we say no Hood, are you like, what's the line? Voice act or like
A side mission.
a side mission?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
If it is just a piece of paper, Greg wins the bet.
If the side mission is, I defeated the Hood 2 weeks ago, now I got to go catch the costume or something, that counts. That counts.
Man, the writing's really taking a drop off.
That
in this
counts for me
game.
or that counts for you?
That counts for you. That
Okay.
I wouldn't argue that is in the game.
Okay.
Okay. Fair enough, everybody. I like that. I appreciate making the thing spicy.
I don't think we'll see Mysterio.
Because you can't wrap up the whole Is Magic Real storyline in just 22 pages, you know?
That's a good point.
I think they will. We'll find out.
I mean, way more
we'll
than
find out.
22 pages.
I'm excited for Saturday. I'm gonna get this comic and see where we're going. Hopefully, shirtless Spider-Man's in it.
When you get to the end of the comic and it's like, oh, by the way, the game is coming out on September 18th.
That'd be awesome,
right?
I mean, Tony Todd was right. Venom was right.
Do you think we're still gonna get the his claim of, oh yeah, the game's coming out in September? Do you think that's still the plan after now we have Armored Core coming out end of August and then Starfield coming out in September? Do you think Spider-Man still sticks to that month?
I do, yeah.
That's fucked up. I can't imagine playing those 3 games in like a 4 to 5 week span. That'll kill me.
Sure. But it's also that thing of like, I don't think you're super rare, but I think you're more rare than you think. Like, I think Armored Core is not going to be like, everybody's got to play Armored Core. I think this will be the most played. This will be the most played Armored Core because obviously FromSoft's in such a different spot now. But Spider-Man's Spider-Man. Like,
I mean,
you know,
did you see the last Armored Core trailer?
Yeah, I did.
No,
It looks
because
good.
I don't care about Armored Core.
It looks so cool.
I'm not arguing that. I just don't think it's going to turn as many heads as Spider-Man will.
Yeah, like I mean, there definitely is audience overlap in the sense that if you're Blessing or other people that aren't, if you're really in it, then of course, you're going to play both of them. But yeah, Armored Core is definitely being set up to be the best game that I don't play, both because of time and then also because I'm not going to play it because someone's going to be like, oh, well, once you really understand like how you can mech inside the mech and whatever, like it's incredible. And I'm like,
I don't like
that
your
sounds
impression.
great. Like,
I love meching inside the mech.
I know you love a mech and a mech and a mech.
I can't wait. I feel
They call you mechanized
Bless is a
Poppy.
mech a vehicle to you?
yeah, it's a mech is 1000% a vehicle. If somebody says it's not a vehicle, you got to like take them to 2nd grade and have them do their education again because they're fucking up.
I mean, I kind of don't feel like it's a vehicle.
No,
because if I ask,
it's a
I
mechanized
want a game
vehicle.
that has vehicles in it, I would, and you give me like a mech game, I'd be like, it's kind of like the hot dog sandwich thing. It's like technically, but you look like an ass because it's like, why'd you take me to this hot dog shop when I wanted a sandwich or this sandwich shop when I wanted a hot dog?
Wait, what is a vehicle to you? Like define a vehicle.
Like I said, it technically is a vehicle, but if I said I want a game with vehicles in it, and you gave me a mech game, I'd be like, this isn't quite what I wanted, but you technically you weren't wrong, but I felt like you tried to be barely right.
I'd probably ask you, why are you asking for a game with vehicles in it? Like, do you want to
Why are you
just ask me for a game with cars? Like, I don't know. I've never met
if you want a selection like the crew have, cars, boats, and planes.
I've never met a vehicle fan. Like, I know car fans.
I mean,
and
aren't
airplane
you a Diddy
fans.
Kong Racing stan? Is that
Okay,
you?
no,
Is
that's
that fair?
fair.
Is that a mix? That has it's a game with vehicles.
But
Like, it's more than cars.
if
but-
I was scrolling through the vehicles available in Diddy Kong Racing and it went car, hovercraft, airplane, mech, that game's a better game. Like, yeah, okay, you guys did the damn thing. It's a 10 out
I'm
of
not
10.
saying that they shouldn't come together, but it's just like, again, does this scenario come up? No, but I don't know. It's a question I saw and I was thinking about it.
Somebody in chat says, is BT from Titanfall 2 a vehicle? Yes.
See,
No,
no, that's
Brian
where I
Cutler
draw the
says
line.
no.
That's where I draw the line.
Is it because he has a soul?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you have a soul, you're not a vehicle. Optimus Prime isn't
So-
a vehicle.
He's literally
No,
a car.
he
He
No, he
disguises himself.
He
as
can
a
disguise
vehicle,
his, yeah.
Well,
By
he
your,
can
disguise
drive
by
that
your
way.
argument, a stick bug is a stick. Just got your ass.
Wait, hold
Just
on.
got his
Optimus Prime,
ass.
like, he can drive though, right? Like down the highway. Like I could be on the highway with Optimus Prime and not know that he's Optimus Prime,
A stick
correct?
bug could just hang out and just pretend to be a stick and not walk anywhere.
I have
Janet, when I'm in
no
LA
rebuttal.
next time, you climb on my back, I'll walk you down the street in my vehicle. You know what I mean?
I absolutely
I
have
don't
no
like this
rebuttal
line
for the
of
stick.
questioning. That's
stick
what I
bug.
mean. That's what I mean. You know what I mean? Like it gets like there. Again, what's the It's the difference between God. What is it called? There's like, oh man, there's like 2 words for it. It's like the type of like dictionary definition. There's like one that's literal and one that's like more
Figurative?
general. I forget the. No, I'm like really fucking
Colloquial.
up. It would have sounded no. If I'll think of it in like an hour and I'll slack it to you.
I
But
felt really
anyway,
good about colloquial.
So I mean, it's a good word, but it's not what I was.
I know if I'm
asking.
saying
Anyway.
it correctly. It doesn't sound like a real
Colloquial term?
colloquial.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it right. We already talked about the Housemarque stuff. I don't know if you guys have any more comments on that. that
Connotative
Housemarque
and
is growing.
denotative.
Oof, never would have
No, yeah,
never would have helped you on that.
I wouldn't
one.
have
That's what it
Never would've
was. Denotative is direct definition. Connotative is like it contextualized in our known societal reality and all that stuff. So there you go.
Housemarque's
Anyway, what's up with
expanding.
Housemarque?
I think we talked about it enough in the up there in terms of live service stuff. I think they'd be a great fit for some of these live service initiatives because again, they make those smaller arcade-like experiences.
Yeah, if you came to me and you're like, which PlayStation Studios would you want to make a live service thing? I probably would put Housemarque up there just because, like, when you're talking about a multiplayer thing or a live service thing, I want the gameplay to be solid, and I believe in them when it comes to, we're gonna put you on a planet in space and like just shoot down shit with a friend. Like that with their gameplay, with their like weapon variety and like the way in which even the way in which weapons upgrade in Returnal, you can translate that I think pretty well to a multiplayer kind of thing.
Bring back Dead Nation, make that a games as a service.
I mean that too. Yeah. But yeah, no, I'm happy for them expanding. And I hope it means that whatever they're working on next is even bigger and better than Returnal.
Me too.
Let's talk about PlayStation picks. The drop this week looks like this. Age of Wonders 4 is coming to PS5 May 2nd. We got Grindstone for PS5 and PS4. And then
Whoa, Grindstone's coming to play.
Yeah. And then Hogwarts Legacy for PS4. And then we got a write-in from a dog, Nick96 from Massachusetts, who says, hello, PS, I love you, XOXO. I just want to let you know about a game that released last week. I'm writing in now because I just found out about it yesterday. Also, it wasn't mentioned on KFGD for the day it was released and out today, nor in the drop from last week's PS Love You. The game is Varney Lake. It's on PS4 and PS5. This game is the follow-up to Mothman 1966.
Janet and I know it well.
It's another pulp text adventure featuring 3 young teens in 1954. I've played maybe an hour of it so far, and it's more of the same, but has a new story and new minigames. The game also has a demo for Mothman 1966, if you haven't played that one, as well as a demo for the next game in the series, Bonson Knights. Lastly, I wanted to mention that...
You get it, my dog, Nick96, you made this game. Jeez.
A PS5 version of Mothman was released too. It's not a free upgrade. These games have fairly easy platinum trophies, so I figured you'd like to know.
Right.
I know everyone is busy with review season, but I think I remember Greg and Janet talking about the first game. I bought that one and ended up platinuming it. Thank you for reading this and have a great day.
The platinum is hard.
There's that annoying ass random draw card game that you have to win, but you can lose like 20 cards in. Like that's not no. That's not a good
that's not
platinum trophy.
easy.
It's like Holotactics all over again.
It might be. Well, I didn't play Holotactics. It might be worse because it literally is random. Like. It is random, and it's not like you can rewind time. Playing Minish Cap on Switch has ruined me for games because I'm like, why can't I just rewind all my mistakes in every game? Which I think is a valid question. I'm a little salty with myself because I have not gotten to this yet. I have it locked and loaded. I just have not been able to spend time with it. I'm assuming it's probably short, like Mothman, though, which is cool. And yeah, like I like these games. I'm enjoying. I would like to keep following this little series. It's like a short, pulpy vibe that it kind of reminds me of how I'm committed to the Dark Pictures games, except these games are like kind of actually secretly maybe better, like frankly. They're much smaller in scope, and it's definitely a thing where some people would play this and be like, I think looking at the gameplay, you'll know if you'll like it or not. Some people would totally be like, that's not my game at all. And then some people are like me and Greg, and it's like, oh my God, you can sort through these cans of beans. Like, this is great. Like, genuinely. So yeah, I really enjoyed the first one. I'm going to check this out. I'll definitely report in when I get around to it. I think I'll try to stuff it in pretty soon. Cause again, not our show, but getting ready for Tears of the Kingdom, which I'm also trying to beat Breath of the Wild, which I'd never finished. It's been years, but
you have a bunch of great clips that you posted over on your Twitter that people should just definitely check out at Game Odyssey. Very fun.
It's a lot of me being electrocuted because that's the season I'm in right now.
Yeah, I think Janet, I think you tipped me off. I've had a review code since they sent them out, but I just have not had time with review season to make time for Varney Lake. But it's on my list for sure.
Greg, what'd you pick to play on PlayStation this week?
Boring. Just been. I did Redfall, but that wasn't on PlayStation. So yeah, I've just been playing in that light Star Wars and WWE. So same thing as you've heard me talk about a bajillion times. Working on the platinum, like we talked about earlier, having a great time. The only thing that's keeping me from the platinum is how good I think Survivor is. So I just keep running around doing that. But it's funny, like Survivor is one of those games. Like when I do the dishes, I usually watch something else and listen in. And like last night was like, I just want to watch people play Survivor, and I got to catch Bruce Green's stream right as he got to a very big pivotal story moment and hang out with him for it. I thought that was cool.
Oh yeah. Jana, what about you? What'd you pick to play?
I finally finished the Burning Shores DLC. I didn't 100% it, and I'm not sure if I will because other things are coming up. But
I saw you tweet about the final boss, and I really want to talk to you at some point. I don't know if we're ever going to do a Burning Shores like spoiler cast or something like that, but like I fucking love that final boss, but I've seen you and other people not like that final boss.
We obviously y'all have a very packed production schedule basically every week, but if you ever want to, like, because we've done a lot of Horizon content on PS I Love You already, and as at a certain point, it's kind of like, all right, it's time to do other content. But I'm totally down to do like a bonus thing, like take time out of my day and do it whenever you can, if you have time to do it.
We host a PlayStation podcast. We can just say that next week's the Horizon Burning Shores spoiler cast for topic of the show, and I can stop playing Jedi and go play Horizon.
Ooh, I like that.
I'm
idea.
down to.
I'm in.
Full disclosure, I did do a spoiler cast with Min-Max, but I'm going to do another one.
Boo! It's not the same.
No, actually, funny enough, I was gonna. Well, they asked like, "Did you guys do it yet?" I'm like, we didn't. I don't know if we're going to. And then I was like, "Oh, like we should." It was me and Jeff, and I'm like, "We should try to get Blessing." And then I'm like, "Oh no, he like works," which I know sometimes you can move that around to like do guest appearances, but I'm like,
oh, he's got a job.
Yeah, I literally did a guest appearance on a podcast today, and I moved my schedule for it. Yeah,
I know,
let me know.
Like, it was like really last minute, and like so I'm like, oh, it'll just be me and Jeff. And then also too, I'm like, I don't know how much you like also know Jeffum, so it's like it's gonna be like me talking to Bless, and then the Jeffum's like third wheel in the podcast. Like I just left it alone. But I would like to talk about it at length because there's a lot of things to say there. So if you guys want to do a spoiler cast, I'm totally down. I have so much to say about it. Overall, I liked it though. So we'll save more thoughts for whenever we can dig into it. And then I'm playing Star Wars Jedi Survivor. I won't talk too much on that just because I haven't beaten it yet, so I don't have like an immense amount to say, but I will say that I'm really, really loving this one. I was open to the first one, like when I first played it, I'm like, all right, like I see some cool things here, lots of like PS3 platforming energy, but like in a good way, like not in a bad way. Like it has a fun, like heartwarming kind of design to it that I really like, but a lot of things kind of kept me from continuing with it. This one, out the gate, like the first 2 hours in, I'm like, oh, so much stuff's done better. It's so much smoother. Like things just work. Like, you get things faster and the stuff's more interesting. Like I'm totally in love with this game. Like I don't know what my gameplay schedule will quite look like for the next week. So I don't know how much progress I'll make for it before I get pulled away. But I am really loving, same thing as you, Greg, just being in the world, hanging out. I think they give you an incredible amount of options in terms of how you want to play. Like while it's still kind of like Soulsy Star Wars, like there's a lot of gradient within that. There's like an ability that I'm obsessed with where you like can like make an enemy like fight another enemy, and I love that in games because again, I'm looking to do nothing. You can argue for why I'm this way, but like I want to step back and just watch things happen that I orchestrated, and this game lets you do that. You can get like a ranged attack. Like I'm kind of head over heels for it. That's not to say that it's like the best game I played this year necessarily so far, but it's the one that it's one that I'm really clicking with in a way that I haven't felt about a game in a really long time, and that's a great feeling to have. So definitely, I think if you're on the fence and maybe weren't super hot on the first one, you might still want to check out this one because I wasn't super into the first one, and I'm like eating the second one up. So
hell yeah.
For me, I got to do a preview of Street Fighter 6, the new one that's coming out, and not too long from now that I'm very excited for. And the preview is basically like, the whole game was pretty much there, but like they limited us to how much we could play of it. I got to play a lot more of the World Tour mode beyond what's in the demo. Yeah. And like speaking from just playing the general game, right? Like, oh man, Street Fighter is so good. Like I echo a lot of what I've already said about the beta, and even getting to check out more of the characters and explore around. Like, really love how they control. Really like exploring the characters. I think I found a new favorite in Cammy, and how she plays. And yeah, like I like everything about it. The presentation, how much they're putting into trying to make this game more approachable for the player base who plays it casually. I think they're getting all that stuff right. I got to mess around with a little bit of the modern control scheme, which is like the more simplified thing, and then also there's another control scheme which basically just plays the game for you when you press the buttons, which is like I'm gonna give the controller to my little brother mode. And yeah, I think they're all good additions. I continue to be very excited about this game. Playing more of the World Tour, I am not super excited for this mode. I think from what I played, it's fine. It's not bad at all. It's an additional way to interact with the game in terms of you're going around this open environment. You are basically challenging anybody you want on the street to a fight, which I think is really funny and really lives up to the name of Street Fighter, because you can square up with pretty much anybody.
Okay.
And like the more you fight, the more you level up. It's RPG mechanics, right? Like our RPG elements that are fitting into this game. You're going through, you're meeting up with different Street Fighter characters, and so you start off and you're in Luke's gym, and you get to like learn his moveset and play with his moveset, but then like you end up meeting Chun-Li, and like you get to learn Chun-Li's moves. And I think the cool thing about the customization aspect is you're going in with a created character, but you get to mix and match different moves from the characters that you meet in the story mode. And so you are playing, you can have like the base moveset of Luke, but then also have like some of Chun-Li specials and then some of Luke's specials.
That's
and I
cool.
assume that as you get further on in the mode, you're probably
Keeps
meeting
expanding out
more
that way.
fighters. And yeah, you're going to expand your moveset and mix and match based on what special moves you like. I think it's a really cool idea. And I think there's a lot of, fun quirkiness and personality in the story mode. It's just the idea that for me, it felt way more button mashy and way more like, okay, I'm just gonna level up my character and get into fights over and over again, and like and not as engaging and worthwhile as I think it could be. Right, I'm so used to now playing the NetherRealm story modes when it comes to Mortal Kombat or Injustice, and those feel like, oh man, all right, you've really constructed a very entertaining, engaging story and conflicts between these characters, and the cutscenes are so dope and all that. Whereas in Street Fighter World Tour, it almost feels like you're in Disneyland a little bit, and you're meeting characters that are dressed up as your favorite Disney characters, right? Like that's kind of how it feels, where it's you're running around, you're like, this is not canon. Like these characters, you're not even from this country. Like, what are you doing here? Like, what's going on here? And you're kind of just interacting very lightly with these characters, and then going through and leveling.
We had a conversation about the expected success of Street Fighter on Games Daily this week, and I know Barrett's got a heart out here that we want to hit. So just real quick, do you think that this mode will be the thing that gets them knocked in reviews? Like, gameplay's great and yada yada and fighting, but they put this thing in there and it's
it's the tough thing is, I think it's gonna depend on the reviewer and what they're looking for, because I think for the most part, Street Fighter's never had a mode like this, and so to like if you focus in on like the actual fighting you're doing and the mechanics of it and all that stuff, I think Street Fighter is going to review very well. I think the people that ding it for this mode aren't going to ding it by much, right? It's going to be like oh yeah, and World Tour mode was fine, and like, but I
like when we had great, like the Tomb Raider game that was great, but it had a shitty multiplayer. But we're like, why would you play multiplayer?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's going to be but there's so much other things to play besides World Tour. Like that is just an additional mode, and it's not. I think the important thing is it's not bad, right? It's like a solid, like good. It's what I would call a 3 out of 5 on the kind of funny scale, where the rest of the game has potential to be 5 out of 5. Right? Like I absolutely love the rest of the game. It's just that World Tour seems fine. And even talking to other people that were at the event, like I was talking to somebody who was like, "Oh yeah, like I liked it actually. Like I actually thought it was pretty fun."
You're
so
a fucking idiot, threw your drink in their face, walked
yeah,
away.
I hit their hat off their head and was like, go back to your website. The website, IGN, it's messed up.
Oh my god.
But yeah, no, like I think there will be a handful of people that enjoy it, especially I think more casual players will find something to enjoy here because it's an easier ease in to the rest of the game. You're coming at it with like the characters that you're fighting are leveled down when you start off, and so I think it'll be easier for people to come in and enjoy themselves before they jump into like the deep end of the pool in terms of online and stuff.
Well, all right, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. You have homework. Beat Horizon Burning Shores so we can talk about it in a spoilercast next week.
Yay!
You're a jerk. You won't do it. You jerk.
It's only 5 hours.
Yeah,
right?
it's not long. Yeah.
I beat the game, the base game, so I'm all set.
If you're one of the people who are like, oh man, I don't want to, we'll put it at the end of the show. We'll do the show out of order so you can listen to most of it. P.S. I love you, and then we'll do a tots about the spoiler cast. Worth noting, right now on the calendar, and I don't think it'll move because next week's crazy. We're recording on Tuesday. The idea was it was going to be just me and Janet because Blessing has a big day. But if you want to be here for it, we'll see about moving other stuff for you. But we'll figure it all out. Tuesday, everybody, patreon.com/kindafunny if you want to be live in the chat for the spoiler cast. Wednesday for everybody else. Hold on, let me look at the calendar because
it might still be Friday for everybody.
Yeah,
else.
that was no. I think if me and Tim had a whole conversation about this today, juggling the schedule, and I think it might go the opposite way, where XCast takes Friday, we take Wednesday. Gotcha. That's what's happening. It's confusing, but it's because we make so much stuff. All because you support us on Patreon.com/kindafunny. That's what keeps the mics and the lights on. Thank you for that. Remember, you can get every episode of P.S. I Love You XOXO ad-free. You can watch us live as we record it all on patreon.com/kindafunny. Of course, you could also get dozens and dozens of extra bonus episodes of shows. You can watch the other podcasts live as they record it. You could just, have a good time and support us. None of that is your jam. No big deal. YouTube.com/kindafunnygames. Podcast services around the globe each and every week. Until next time, it's been our pleasure to serve you.